friends, welcome back to the Jesus Sampler podcast. If you're new, I'm your host, Peyton. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. This podcast is for the searching, the lost, and the found. So no matter if you just started following Jesus yesterday, or if this is your first time hearing about him, or hey, maybe you've been following him for the past 40 years, this podcast is for you. And today we have a very special guest on. Rachel King is in the house.
Hey.
I'm so excited for this episode. Your sister actually came on a couple months ago. I think it was like for the launch of season 2. So I'm so excited to have you on. She's the sweetest human ever. We were literally talking about outfits and like coordinating before the show. So I'm super excited to have you on.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah. So if you want to just start off by telling the listeners a little bit about who Rachel is, that would be great. Tell them a little bit about you and your story. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'm Rachel King. I'm 21, and I live in Livermore, Kentucky. Grew up there. I grew up going to church with Peyton at Liberty Lighthouse Church. Pastor Sister Gaddis. She's the sweetest. She's the best. Yeah, I just work and go to church. That's just pretty much what I do.
Yeah. It says live a quiet life in the Bible, so
I definitely live a quiet life.
I'm working on that.
Yeah.
I'm working on that for sure. So a lot of people love this next segment because I think it's just something that's real to a lot of people and makes Jesus more real to them. And it's testimony time. So of course you've listened, you've heard a lot of people's stories. So this is kind of a time for you to tell an experience or a story of how Jesus has been talking to you or teaching you something lately. So if you want to jump into that'd be great.
I guess lately God's just been dealing with me about my faith and about what he's been like my tongue and just speaking life and not death. And the Bible says that death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it will eat the fruit thereof. And I think about this time, it was like 6 months ago probably, and I was sitting at work and I was just complaining about how I was getting sick. I was like, I might have to leave. Like, I'm sick because I had symptoms and everybody around me was sick and I was just upset. And so like I was really like playing it like I'm sick. And I guess I went on my lunch break and that verse went through my head, death and life are in the tongue and in the power of the tongue. I just spoke and I was like, I'm not getting sick. And I just all day long was like, I'm not going to be sick. This is not it. Jesus, you are the healer and you're going to heal me. And that's what I'm speaking, because I'm speaking life and not death. And I remember Brother Aaron and Sister Andrea were preaching at our church that night, and we went to church and we were playing music, and I guess we stayed up there when he started preaching, and he turned around and he's like, Rachel, you're being healed right now. And I was like, thank you, Jesus. And so that has been, just as I've been going through all of this now, as he's speaking to me now, that's just something I get to look back on, and that's just evidence that his word's true.
I love that.
In my life, and he just showed me that what I speak is true. And then it goes into just my faith and speaking belief and not speaking unbelief. And it says that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Yes.
Yeah, that's so good. I just listened to a song by SEU Worship. It's on TikTok. I literally had to repost it, but it was like about how your heart is a temple and how your heart is a home to the Lord. And it's so powerful that the Jesus that we read about in the Bible, all the characteristics that he's shown is living inside of us. Yes. And how each church service that we attend, Jesus is there. Yeah. And how he was preparing you that whole week for that moment. And he knew your healing was coming. Yeah. He knew what Brother Aaron was going to say to you, but he was preparing you all that way with his word. And I love that about Jesus. Yeah. So the kickoff that I love, it's like Super Bowl kickoff. The kickoff question that I always ask people, and I'm going to ask you, is what does being a Christian overall mean to you?
Honestly, I was thinking about this and I was like, I don't know how to answer this, but the truth is, it's literally the most important thing. Like, if I wasn't a Christian, I don't know like what my life would be. There would be no purpose for me. Like, it's my purpose. It's my life. And it's just, I think about the verse that he gives us life and he gives us a life more abundant. Mm-hmm. And I think just as a Christian, we live an abundant life because that's what Jesus has given us. It's the most important thing because, it's the only thing that can satisfy my soul. And I think about Peter, and Peter said, like, Jesus said, the multitude had left, and Jesus is like, are you going to leave us too? That's paraphrasing, but he's like, are you going to leave us too? Talking to the 12. And Peter was like, where else will we go? Yeah. You were the one that held the words of eternal life. Wow. Yeah. So I just think about that. I'm just very happy to be a Christian because there's nothing else that's going to satisfy.
That's true. And I always think about, the human moments that Jesus had too. Whenever he turned around and he asked, he's the Lord. Like he's done tons of miracles at this point. He's healed the sick, raised the dead, but he still has human moments where he's like, all the multitudes have left because they've seen Jesus, they've seen how he works. But then he turns around and he asks his tribe of friends, basically, the 12 men that have followed him, are you going to lead me too? And I feel so overjoyed that this Jesus who's done so many miraculous works was also human so that he can relate to what we're going through. It's a beautiful thing. We are going to talk a lot about culture because honestly I was struggling to kind of come up with a topic for you and us to talk about, but culture is very important because while culture in the world is so dark, I feel like there is a great revival happening all over the place, and it's a lot. It has a lot to do with our age group, which is pretty sick. But if you could describe today's culture in one word, what would it be?
I would have to describe it as self-centered and selfish.
Because a lot of the generation that we're in, they call us the I generation.
Yeah.
We are consumed with self.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the funny thing about Jesus is he calls us to be selfless.
Yes.
Not selfish, because if we look at the cross, that was Jesus laying it all down for us. If we give our life to him, if we lay our life down for him, we'll gain it. But if we try to do it for our own will and our own way, we'll lose it.
Yeah.
So I would definitely agree that it's very self-centered, very selfish. And so I really wanted to talk with you. This is so exciting. I always love talking about this with you. But you traveled for a season of your life.
Yeah.
You just graduated high school, right?
And I literally left right after I graduated.
I remember that. It was like 2 or 3 years ago. You traveled with a couple of evangelists. Can you describe that experience for listeners? Because a lot of people want to know, like we see all the videos, we see all the YouTube, we see everything on social media, but I really wanted to ask you, since you've experienced it, what that was like.
It was very good. I loved it. Like it changed my life. Like, and it was just being in church that much changes your life. But then there's the other side of it that it's like we see how they are, like how preachers are in church, and that's good. Like they're good, and I'm not. But like they have a real life. Like it's not all great all the time. Like I'm not talking about people. I'm just talking about life in general. Like it's hard. I feel like you go places and you fight different spirits because of the different places you go and the different people you're around all the time. And then, I mean, you're always traveling, so you're wore out and you're tired. But it's great because you get in church and every night you get to get closer to Jesus and you have a lot of time to just really spend focused on Jesus. And it really changed my life. It taught me how to just focus on the Lord, and that's just got to be the center of my life. That's just how to make that like the purpose of my life and the goal.
For people who would ask you, Rachel, like, why do you travel? Why would you give it all up for a year, summer, whatever it might be, instead of hustling after that career, hustling after the job?
Yeah. I think it goes back to it's what I love. When I became a Christian, I fell in love with Jesus, and that's at the time. Honestly, at the time, I needed an out of where I was at, the places I was at. I was scared I was going down, and my life changed because I went out and I was like, this is my goal. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to seek first the kingdom of heaven. All of these things will be added unto you. Yep. Seek first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things will be added to you. And I guess I just had my mind made up that that's what I was going to do. And it was important because I was just in a place that I was pulling back kind of, and I think if I stayed, then it would have went a whole different way.
Yeah. But God knew you needed that. Years before, this is the thing, like God knows our thoughts afar off.
Yes,
He knows where you are before you even enter that season of your life. And honestly, he saw that throughout the whole thing, what you would do, where you would go. It says he will lead and guide you into all truth. And we follow him. And I think whenever you were talking about kind of going down the wrong way, I think of Peter and how Peter witnessed all the great miracles of God, and he witnessed him being crucified. But as they were out on the boat doing everyday things, going back to everyday life, he didn't even have, the man walked on the shore, it was Jesus, but
Yeah.
he didn't even have to say his name to know who he was.
Yeah.
And even if you've strayed afar off, if you're listening and you've maybe strayed a little bit, or maybe you're like, what's the whole point of the Jesus thing? Like, he can change your life with one word.
Absolutely.
He can change your life in a second. I've heard of people accepting Christ in their cars. I think there's a stigma in culture that, you have to be in a church
Yeah.
to accept Christ, but you don't have to. Like,
No.
there have been people, I don't know if you've heard about this, who've accepted Christ in stadiums, in they're getting baptized in pickup trucks and
Yeah.
kiddie pools and just everywhere. And it's so amazing that Jesus will meet you wherever you are. You don't have to be in a church. This isn't just a Sunday type of faith
No.
either. This is what
It's a
exactly
daily walk.
daily walk. And like, God changes you every day.
Yeah,
Every day
he
he's
does.
molding you and making you. He's the potter, we're the clay.
With the clay, yes.
We're still on the potter's wheel. Don't get us wrong. We mess up sometimes. We go through ups and downs. We go through hills. We go through valleys. But the main goal of the podcast and the main goal of us speaking today is to literally tell you, no matter what season you're in, Jesus loves you. Jesus wants to change you. Jesus can change you. We've known him as the deliverer, the healer, the man who's changed our lives, and he can change yours today. And that is some truth for you.
That's true.
Daily truth. To touch on that season, was there a moment during that season of your life, whenever you were traveling, where God taught you or showed you something, whether that be under a revival tent, reading your Bible during quiet time with the Lord, or even going down the road that you want to share with listeners?
Yeah, I think that he showed me a lot when we were traveling. One of my favorite things is we were sitting and we were about to go into a revival, into a church, and I think we were in Florida, and we were just sitting in the car, and I was just sitting back there reading my Bible, and I was reading in Psalms. I don't even know what I was reading, but I remember it was in Psalms, and I was reading, and I just felt like I'm sitting in a car full of people, and I'm just sitting there, and I just feel like the love of God. And that was the first time I'd felt something like that, and I was like, it was very personal. So it just showed me that we serve a God he's personal. He died for the world. I love the verse that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. But I think that he also died for you. So God so loved Peyton that he gave his only begotten Son. And in that moment, that was my God so loved Rachel moment. It was just very special because I was just sitting there reading. That was it. And I was just trying to learn more because before that, I didn't really read my Bible so much. I was just reading, and he just came in and just like a hug, like just like of love. And I started weeping and crying, and like I was just sitting back there crying in in a car full of people, and I don't even think they knew, but they didn't have to know. It was about Jesus was just touching me personally, and I loved that because we serve a personal God.
Do. I love that. I love how he'll get in the mess with you.
Yes.
He'll get down in the muck with you. And I love that he's so personal. Like, there's no one else that has talked to me like Jesus has. There's no one that's treated me like Jesus has. Like, yes, he speaks to me in the church pew, but he also speaks to me in my house.
Yes,
He
yes.
also speaks to me in my car, in my cubicle at work. There's no boundary to where Jesus can't reach you. And it's such a great thing. Like, the God who's created the world lives inside of you. Moving on to the next question here. What are ways that we as Christians can spread the gospel wherever we are that can kind of counter culture, the way of, Christians are judgmental, Christians are so narrow minded? What are ways that we can counter that by spreading the gospel in today's world, do you think?
Well, I think first of all, you just really need to be intentional, like about what you say, what you do, how you act around certain people, like really everywhere. As a Christian, I mean, you need to separate yourself, but I think it's just important to be intentional about just your words and your actions.
Yeah, that's so
Just
true. Because I think about the disciples and how each day it must have been, a heart check that they had to do. Like, we're following Jesus. We need to make sure that we're walking the walk, we're talking the talk. They were the closest posse that Jesus was around. So, and then in that, I heard a pastor a couple weeks ago, he was doing a podcast and he said, do a heart check each day. Whenever you wake up, make that decision. It says, as for me and my house, I think it's in Joshua, we will serve the Lord. So say that over yourself each day. As for me in my life, I'm going to serve you, Jesus. I'm not going to, in ways that you can do that. Do you want to touch on that? Ways that you can, like music that you listen to?
Yes, absolutely.
The community that you're in.
I think that your music definitely
Oh,
Definitely.
yes.
We talk about this
Yeah, all the time.
definitely. Yes.
All the time.
Our music, it's just what you listen to. What you put in is going to come out. So even the TV, like the TV shows you're watching, honestly, even videos like on TikTok and
TikTok.
stuff, like they can get rough, you know.
I
And
know.
I have to delete it. I don't have it right now.
Did you
Because,
delete TikTok?
yeah, TikTok's bad. But it's just, you know, you can't. I can't do all the filth, you know. It
Yeah.
comes out, and like I think that there's too many people around me that aren't saved, that I can't have things coming out that aren't
That's a
Jesus, you
bar.
know?
That'll preach because we're meant to be the salt and light of the earth. Your dad
Yeah.
talks about this all the time. And salt is a healing agent, and light exposes darkness.
Yeah.
And there's a verse in the Bible. So it's 2 Corinthians 6:14. And then I'm going to read from the New Living Translation. This is actually really good. Don't team up with those who are unbelievers. How can righteousness be a partner with wickedness? How can light live with darkness? That's actually really good.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, as believers, we're a team, we're a unit. So, but we are called to, evangelize, to bring people into the fold, but we're not called to compromise.
No.
So don't compromise, evangelize.
No. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely have to separate yourself from the world.
Mhm.
You know, if we look like them, how are they going to notice that we're different?
Yeah,
you know?
that's actually good. And then I feel like there's a lot, especially with TikTok. You have people that are like believers, but then you have like little moments, and I get it, people aren't perfect.
Yeah.
In the word, it says, he'd rather you be hot or cold than lukewarm.
Absolutely, yes.
Because lukewarm can hurt a lot of people.
It can. Because,
And
I mean, people see one thing, but then they see the other, and they're like, so is this okay? Is this not?
Right.
It creates confusion, and
Mhm.
that's not of God. So
Right.
yeah.
And if you're struggling with certain things, we're not condemning you at all.
No.
This podcast is not to condemn, but to set free. If you're struggling with certain things, give it to God every single day. Lay it on the altar every single day. If it's cussing, if it's the music you're listening to, if it's the life you live, the community that you're around, say, Lord, prepare the way and I'm going to walk in it. Lead and guide me into all truth. The Lord's not going to lead you into a lie. The Lord's not going to lead you down a dark path. The Lord's going to lead you to the path that leads to heaven, which is your home, which is where He abides. What would you say, or what advice would you give to people who are maybe afraid to share their testimony or their faith with others? Because it can be kind of hard.
It is kind of hard. I remember in high school, it was really hard for me.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I was different. I knew I was different. And people liked me, but I didn't really have like great friends because I was different and I knew I was different. But I was kind of ashamed. In high school, I was ashamed. I was a little ashamed, and that's not right. Like, don't be ashamed.
Yeah, we have listeners
not
who
be
are high
ashamed.
school age, so
Yeah, it's way more important to be a Christian than to care what people think. It doesn't matter what people think.
yeah, exactly.
It really doesn't. You think it does in high school.
Because that's
honestly,
your world.
Yeah, I heard my parents say that all through high school.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't actually matter, Rachel. Like, you don't need to worry about them. You don't have to fit in. Like,
Yeah.
but it's like so true because you get out of high school, it's
You never see those people again.
No, and the world's different. It's just different. High
is.
school is like its own world.
It's just its own world.
Yeah.
And honestly, you don't know who you're impacting. I know I talk about this all the time, but I love it how, like with this show, like we don't know who we're impacting right now. So it's very important to really key into who your community is, where you're drawing, what well you're drawing from.
Yes,
Make sure your well is pure. Make sure it's from Jesus. Be very intentional with who you're hanging out with, what you're listening to, because like Rachel said, what you're going to listen to and what you're putting in is going to come out. So as mentioned before earlier in the episode, we're seeing an absolute great revival in our generation right now. It's actually pretty insane. From Ohio to Florida to, I mean, even sports teams are just absolutely getting turned around, transformed for Jesus. But the enemy is constantly working to try and tear it down on the other side. So why do you think the enemy is after our generation specifically? Now more than ever, it seems like he is just trying to tear it up from the floor up.
Well, I love this question because I believe that God's fixing to do something big. I think that He is prepared. I think things are moving around. I think that the devil's attacking because God's about to move. And before God moves really greatly, I really believe that the devil just tries to come in and destruct all he can and tries to pull away, you know? And they're really pulling on us because, I mean, I feel like it's really targeting our generation.
It really is.
I think the revival is going to have something to do with our generation. I think a lot of souls are going to be saved. You know, this is what makes me excited because this is what I feel like inside. I feel like tons of souls are going to be saved. And I feel like it's going to be our generation, and that's just, it's great. I'm so excited.
I love that because like a lot of people view us as the underdogs. Like
Yeah.
we come from great people. Like we've been over great people. We've heard of great pastors and preachers who have traveled the world. But I honestly think like social media is going to be used to reach people, podcasts. But I love the fact that, God's using our generation, people who, are viewed as kind of like underdogs because he loves to use the underdog. He, even in the word, he encountered the lowly. He encountered the people who everyone else counted out. The Pharisees counted them out. But Jesus went and found Zacchaeus up in a tree and said, I'm going to go eat with you at your house today. And Zacchaeus just wanted to see a glimpse of Jesus in the crowd. But I just love the little Jesus encounters throughout the Bible and how, the same Jesus that we read about lives in us. And he can encounter you anywhere you are today. And that is such a great thing. What strategies, Rachel, do you think that we as believers can utilize in our daily walk with God to kind of counteract the culture today?
I think it's very important that we are intentional about our relationship with Jesus, that we are reading our Bible and we're praying and we're always ready to give an account for the hope that lies within us. It goes back to like being intentional about how you speak and what you do and what God's, what you're saying, because what you say has weight. What you say has weight. And I think that the way people are going to see you and they're always watching you, and they're going to see the light because you are the light of the world. The city set on a hill cannot be hid. We just have to walk. We have to be intentional about walking as a Christian and doing things the right way.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's good because I feel like a lot of the culture right now kind of views Christianity as something that you can only just do on Sundays and you can live however you want any other day. But I just want to talk to you, whoever's listening right now, like Jesus can be your everyday God. Jesus can be your everyday Jesus who you can go to whenever you're in trouble. Go to him whenever you're in trouble, but also go to him whenever your day's going great. It says rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. So if Jesus woke you up today, if you're on the wake up team, he's still got a plan for you. He's still got a purpose for you. You're not counted out. You're not too far gone. Our generation, if you're listening and you're hungover or you're, doing a lifestyle that people might not be proud of, your parents might not be proud of, Jesus still wants you. There's a story in the Bible about the prodigal son. Talk about this all the time. So good. Prodigal son squandered all of his wealth, lived in a pig pen. But the father ran out to meet him with a robe and a ring, with royalty, because his name, his inheritance didn't change, even though he walked away from it, even though he squandered it. His inheritance didn't change. So Jesus will run out to meet you. He'll meet you in the mess. He'll meet you in your lowest moment. He'll meet you in your highest moment. And all he wants you to do is say yes to him.
I love that. I love that story because he was ready. He was waiting for him. He was sitting there waiting for him. He had a feast prepared. He knew he was coming back. And I just love that because Jesus is waiting. He's waiting for us to come to him.
I love that. And then your dad also talks about the father must have worn a path, like checking for him each day.
I love that.
And even whenever the son crested the hill, he didn't wait for him to reach him.
Out to him.
He ran out to him. And that's exactly, I seriously think Jesus placed those intentionally in the Bible to reflect him as a father and to reflect who he is to us. So I cannot stress this to you enough. I don't care what your past looks like. You're not too far gone for Jesus. And if you strayed away from him, the door is still open. You're not barred from Jesus. You can come back to him. Come as you are. There's a song by Carter that says, come as you are. So last question to wrap it up here. How would you describe Jesus? I love this question. How would you describe Jesus to listeners who might not know him or who are on the fence about following him?
I love this question too because I think about how he was to me. For me, I needed a deliverer. And the time I was at, I just needed a deliverer, but I needed someone to just untangle the mess in my mind. And that's who he was to me. I love that he's a personal God because he meets your needs. Whatever your need is, that's who he is. If you need healing, he's a healer. If you need comfort, he's a comforter. If you're sad and you're upset and you have a broken heart, he's near to the brokenhearted. He's a comforter, and he's always there. And he's a friend in a time of loneliness. He's going to be your friend, and he's a brother if you need a brother, and a father when you need a father. And I just love him because he is everything you need.
And I want to, this literally just so unscripted moment. I want to talk to you about the song that you sing. It says, to the table. by Zach Williams. And it's the verse that's echoing in my mind right now is bring it all to the table. There's nothing that he hasn't seen before. And so I don't know why I keep talking about this, but there must be someone listening that needs to hear it. Whatever lifestyle you're in, there's no sin that's too deep for Jesus. I know that there's some people out there who think that there's a list from best to worst or worst to even worse sins, but there's not. I mean, sin is sin. Don't get me wrong. Jesus hates sin, but he loves the people. I always think, if Jesus died for us, why would we willingly do things that he died to save us from?
Yeah.
And so bring it all to the table. Jesus is waiting for you right now. I don't care where you are. I don't care what environment you're in. He's waiting for you to just sit down. Just sit down and just listen to him. And what prayer would you have people pray who are listening right now? And they're like, okay, I've heard about this Jesus. I'm interested. I'm in. I want to accept him. How would you kind of outline a prayer for them to pray? That just came to me.
Yeah.
I literally
I would pray that God would meet you where you were, and he would show you. I mean, if you don't know who he is, you don't really know what to pray for.
Right.
You know?
That's good.
But if you would just pray that he would be what you need him to be, and if he would just come to your life and show you, just show you, and then tell him that I'll make my decision based off what you show me, because I believe that if you are feeling convicted, I mean, if you really are like questioning it, obviously God is dealing with you. Obviously he wants you to come in, and
it can be something as simple as, Lord, forgive me, show up in my life.
Yeah,
Lord,
it doesn't have to be a long prayer.
No, I think so many people have this concept or this idea that it has to be some put together prayer that you have to be kneeling at an altar. And you don't have to. You can literally encounter him anywhere.
Remember the song, when you don't know how to pray, just pray Jesus.
It's an old hymn that we sing, but it's so true, because Jesus, the name of Jesus holds so much power.
So much, yeah.
The name of Jesus has literally set the captive free. I think of the man who lived in the tombs, who was your dad we talked about this at church last Thursday, I think. The minute Jesus set his foot on the shore, the man came running to him. The presence of Jesus can just show up, doesn't even have to say a word. Your whole life can change. That's amazing. That's powerful. Alrighty, so I think that's a wrap on the episode. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm gonna have to you on again because you're just amazing. I think sweet literally describes you to a T. But don't forget to follow the show. We are on YouTube now, so subscribe to the show, follow. We're at 94 followers on Spotify. Make sure to hit that follow button as well. Share the show, because that's what we're all about. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Rachel, for coming on. And we will catch you in the next episode. Bye.